priority for Readable Crest Titans.
Last time out in the Britpart Pioneer All-Wheel Drive Championship, our crews ventured north to the Kearton Off-Road Centre to take on some challenging conditions for the third round of the championship. And it was Chris Cumming who came out on top. We were robbed of the fight between him and Bruce Mallet again after he had a myriad of problems with the car right from the start. Second of the championship finishers from the third round was Bruce Tigwell. Consistency key this season, and some great results from Bruce will see him doing well in the championship standings overall. This time out then, the crews head back down south and to Ilfracombe, the popular seaside resort playing host to the fourth round of the championship. But before the main competition started, there will be a slightly more relaxed battle to take place with the annual soapbox race. A chance for the kids and the big kids alike to have a bit of fun and see who can get their creations down the hill the fastest. The rules were simple: stay safe and have fun. Nothing else really mattered. There were plenty of laughs as the unique creations, shall we say, made it down the hill.
So slow your speed. Look at those flags waving in the wind.
So let's get out to the main event then. And taking the early lead here at round 4 would be Chris Cumming and Fraser Parrish. A great start for the pair after their strong showing last time out, really starting to show a dominance now from the first run, managing to open out almost a minute's lead by the end of run 3. Closest to coming on the leaderboard at this stage would be Bruce Mallet. He had almost matched the times on one of the runs, but unfortunately will be a little slower on the others, putting them in a chasing position. For Mark Hones, it will be third place for now. After an up and down season so far, this will be a strong start. All Mark had to do now was keep things going as they were for the rest of the day. Mike Bakewell and Will Howe were forced to miss the previous round when their vehicle broke down on the way to the event. They had to be towed home with the race car still inside. So they've been making up for lost time this weekend, leading the way in Class 9 and pushing from the early runs. Not far behind the podium positions at this stage either. Team Parry will be out for their first race of the season this weekend, after various things got in the way of them starting out on previous rounds. It would be Dad Ian doing the driving for the first part of the day, setting the benchmark for his daughters to have a go later in the event, ending the morning 5th overall, 2nd in Class 8. And leading the way in Class 7 would be Cy Badge and Matt Hancock. the class lead and 6th place overall. Certainly a good start for the pair, who have a good advantage in that class lead as well. And our leader in Class 4 will be Paul Hansen Phillips. Another great start, the times coming down run by run as well. There'd be a bit of a change around in Team Tennant for this round, reverting back to the old setup of Dad James driving and daughter Philippa navigating, and it was working well for the most part. They did have an issue with the fan not working on the first run, but that was wired to be on constantly for the rest of the day to avoid any more problems. They'd suffer a little damage as well when they hit a rock on the 3rd run of the day. The power steering stopped working, so troublesome, but thankfully they were close to the end of the course and they could investigate before the next run. Dale Wheeler would be out this weekend with a new co-driver. Joe Anning from championship sponsor Pioneer will be calling the corners this time around. They seem to be having fun out there, and the times were all right as well. 9th place overall, 2nd in Class 4 at this stage. And rounding out the top 10 now will be Kieran Jones. 3rd place in Class 4 behind Wheeler, but with a minute's difference between the pair. This will be the first visit to Ilfracombe for Will and James Thompson. Once again being rattled around in that leaf-sprung car, but that wasn't stopping them from enjoying themselves. They did have a problem braking the shocker on the 2nd run of the day though, which was making for some even more bouncy runs. 11th overall now, leading Class 6. Second in that class would be this man, Lee Potter. The gap already looking too big to change, but he was still going to try regardless. Things were going swimmingly meanwhile for Chris and Oakley Wheeler. They didn't have anything to do on the car other than filling it with fuel and perhaps kicking the tyres. 2nd in Class 7, 13th place overall to show for that. For Gary Bully and Lisa Soley, it will be 3rd in that class. Lisa is one half of the Rally Women Norway team, who are aiming to compete on the famous Dakar Rally and have been competing in various events around the world to gain valuable experience and raise awareness. Second place in Class 9 at this stage will be Dave and Lindsay Bakewell. The pair clearly pushing, as you can see, sometimes a little too hard in places. They reached the end of the first few runs though in 15th place overall. This morning was hardly plain sailing for Daryl Hardy and Marianne Cannon. The throttle cable broke on the 3rd run of the day. They had to stop to do a makeshift repair and get them back to service in order to fix things properly. No such problems to report though from Margaret Bakewell and Tris Bradley. They'd be happy with their start as well, 4th in Class 7, 18th place on the leaderboard. The morning runs would see a number of crews retiring early on. One of those suffering with this attrition being Rob Bull, sadly only managing one run of the day, having to limp back before calling it an early finish. So with 3 runs complete here at Ilfracombe, the results at the top of our AWDC leaderboard look like this. Let's head out back onto the course for the next few runs of the event then. There'd be no change in our lead. Chris Cumming and Fraser Parrish still out in front, and they extend that lead even further. The event was theirs to lose now, surely. There's a bit of change to report in the other positions though. Mike Bakewell and Will Howe now climbing up a couple of places to take 2nd. They were still leading Class 9 with that position and on a charge. They were having problems with the fan belts breaking on the car though, and were rapidly running out of spares. Perhaps it was watch this space. A good push from Di Paul Hansen Phillips would see him move up the leaderboard into 3rd place overall. He was, of course, still leading the way in Class 4 at this stage in the event as well. James and Philippa Tennant, meanwhile, had fixed the problem with the power steering now, thankfully only needing a replacement fuse, would you believe it? So they were back out setting some good times to end this leg in 4th place, 2nd in Class 5. Ian Parry had given himself one more run to do before handing over the wheel to his daughters, with Stephanie going first. It wasn't without incident though. A small impact with a tree would be a bit of a setback, shall we say, but thankfully minimal damage done to the car. All the times they continue to lie in 5th place overall. One notable person missing from the top of our leaderboard, of course, at this stage will be Bruce Mallet. A maximum time on run 6 would push him down to 6th place overall at this stage. Almost certainly out of contention for the lead now. And indeed, there would be a similar story for Mark Hones as well, a maximum on run 6 of the day, pushing him down the leaderboard behind Mallet into 7th place. Kieran Jones gains a small number of positions on the leaderboard to end run 6 in 8th place overall and 2nd in Class 4, but on a bit of a charge, it had to be said. Dale Wheeler and Joe Anning, though, were having a few issues. The new TD5 engine in the car was plenty powerful, but they were suffering with it cutting out a few times and losing them a few valuable minutes, not seconds, minutes in run 5. The pace when it was working was looking good. 3rd in Class 4 at this stage, 9th overall with some work to do. And rounding out our top 10 now were Will and James Thompson. The smaller car, an advantage supposedly in the tighter parts of the course through the trees. It was certainly looking good for them. They still lead the way in Class 6 at this stage. A smooth event so far for Gary Bully and Lisa Soley. Plenty happening around them, of course. They'd reached the end of run 6 in the lead of Class 7, jumping up a few positions in the class and on the overall leaderboard, ending this loop in 11th place. One of those fellow competitors who dropped down the Class 7 results would be previous class leaders Cy Batch and Matt Hancock, in case you were missing them. Broken steering on run 4 would result in a maximum time, dropping them down to 2nd in the class, and crucially dropping them from 6th to 12th place on the leaderboard now. Despite that drama all around him, there's no change for Lee Potter through these runs. Remaining 2nd in Class 6, the times were looking like that was where he would finish as well, unless something miraculous or dramatic were to happen. And let's face it, you can't rule it out here in the AWDC. There'd be around a minute, though, back to Daryl Hardy and Marianne Cannon, clawing back some time that they'd lost with those earlier issues, and lying 3rd in the class now as well as 14th overall. And things would still be going to plan for Chris and Oakley Wheeler. No issues to report. The pair lie 3rd in Class 7, 15th on the overall leaderboard. Margaret Bakewell and Trish Bradley were having a few issues, it was fair to say, through these runs. They bent the steering on run 4, and then, going one further, they snapped it on run 5. Thankfully, they borrowed some parts from Tyler Skelly and were able to get it going again after taking a maximum time. Perhaps the damage was already done despite the car being fixed. And speaking of Tyler Skelly, him and Dave Hooper will be having a bad day. A maximum on the first run of the day, followed by some lengthy repairs to get the car back out later. Sadly for them, it wouldn't last. They'd retire. So we're 2/3 through what has turned out to be a bit of a grueling day here at Ilfracombe. Here's a reminder of the results as they are shaping up at the top of our leaderboard. So we're into those final runs for those who've made it then. And let's take a look at how they've shaped up. It would be a finish at least for Margaret Bakewell and Trish Bradley. Lower than they would have wanted, but at least they got that car repaired, thanks to Skelly. And they're back out for a third in class finish. Not bad. We'd see those fan belt issues continuing for Mike Bakewell and Will Howe. They actually went out on the final run with just half of the original belt from the first run of the day because they had, quite frankly, nothing left. They end the event 14th place overall after a couple of maximum times. Chris and Oakley Wheeler would be more than happy with their result this weekend, ending the event with second in Class 7 and 13th place overall. And in the words of the co-driver about driver Chris, the old boy still getting results. Lee Potter would drop down our class results a little in the final runs of the event, taking third in Class 6 this weekend after holding on to second for much of the event. Still, a strong result in 12th overall. This weekend hadn't been without its teething problems though for Dale Wheeler and Joe Anning, but they were happy overall with how the pace was aside from that. They end the event third in Class 7, 11th on the leaderboard, wondering of course what could have been had they had that clean run. We're on to the top 10 then, and it would be a good comeback drive for Daryl Hardy and Marianne Cannon. They step up to second place in Class 6 as well, enjoying the course this weekend after their morning issues were out of the way. Will and James Thompson will be happy with their finish this weekend as well, ending the event in Class 6 with victory, as well as 9th place on the leaderboard. They could have done with more power in the car, don't we all say that from time to time? But overall, things couldn't have been better today, given the grueling event that others had faced. A last-minute push in the final runs of the event would just be enough for Cy Badge and Matt Hancock to get back that class lead that they'd lost earlier on. They end the event with 8th place overall and the win in Class 7. For Kieran Jones, it would be 2nd place in Class 4 to end the event this weekend, taking 7th place overall after a dramatic few runs here at Ilfracombe. And the victory in that class would go to this man, Paul Hansen Phillips, 1st in Class 4, 6th place overall. He had, of course, been higher up the leaderboard at one point, but this finish was still welcomed. One small issue to report for Team Parry this weekend. The oil cooler sprang a leak and needed to be bypassed. Oh, and of course that brush with the tree. Georgia Parry had taken over the driving in the final runs, with Philippa Parry co-driving, and they had managed to put in some good times to end the event 2nd in Class 8, 5th overall, and surely with a good argument to keep Dad back in the service area. Mark Hones would gain some valuable time back from earlier maximum times that he had on the board, managing to end the event with 4th overall. A good end to the event after the problems he'd had early on. He did get a 15-second penalty, but that wasn't something that was going to bother him overall. On to the podium positions then, and there'd be a good comeback as well for Bruce Mallet. Remember him dropping so far down so early in our leaderboard. Managing to get up to that final step on the podium, it wasn't as good as the result could have been, but it was a great drive to climb back up the results in these final runs of the event. James and Philippa Tennant would be more than happy with their result this weekend. They managed to bag themselves 2nd place overall at the finish. Going back to the old format with Dad driving seemed to be working, but hopefully we'll see Philippa back out in the driving seat on future rounds and putting in some good times herself, as we have seen. But despite everything this weekend going on throughout the results and the various class leaderboards, there'd be one constant: Chris Cumming and Fraser Parish dominating the top of our results throughout the event, ending the day with a comfortable margin to add yet another victory to this championship tally. So that's it for round 4 of the Britpart Pioneer All-Wheel Drive Championship here in Ilfracombe. A great result for the championship and some good performances throughout the leaderboards, setting up some good drama surely next time out when we head to the Northern Off-Road Club again for a 2-day event as the 2 championships combine. A longer challenge, a new venue for many of our crews, and we will be there, of course, to bring you all of the action. So stay tuned for that. Keep an eye on our social media in the coming weeks.